Welcome to the XY Advisor podcast. To join a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice, head to xyadvisor.com. This episode is proudly sponsored by Integrity Life. Just like XY Advisor, Integrity isn't afraid to ask the hard questions, like why does quoting life insurance have to be so darn complicated? Why can't you just do it all online? Why can't underwriting be more consistent? And why can't claiming be just that little bit easier? To find out how Integrity is doing all these things differently and more, head to integritylife.com.au/XY. G'day, Clayton here. How's it going? What do you know? Strike a light. We have Hooria here today to discuss financial planning and all things FASEA and a bunch of different subjects. So, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and hello everyone. It's lovely to be here.
No, I've seen I've seen what you're doing sort of popping up on the XY platform a fair bit. And I was looking at it going, actually, it would be really interesting for me to ask you a couple of questions because XY is sort of getting to the stage, or at least it probably has been for a little while now, and it's certainly ramping up now that the raise is successful, where I'm sort of getting less and less connected with what's actually happening on the platform, and I'm off sort of doing all the boring, like tax stuff. So, as companies grow, that tends to what happen. So what is it you're doing, like a level of courses or education or something around the FASEA exam preparation? Like what's going on there?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm running the FASEA Exam Preparation intensive course on the XY Advisor platform, and this is exclusive to the XY Advisor, as I am passionate about your kind of mission and vision, and also I am familiar and I would like to think good friend with few of the members of XY, such as Adrian, I think it goes back to our time at AMP.
That's right. Yes.
And kind of bump into each other in some sort of catch-ups and drinks and things like that. And he was always talking about XY community back in 2015-16. And it's great to see that how far it has come and how much it's grown, and it's way more established as a community for the advisors, and it's all credit to you guys to put a lot of effort. And I guess, Clayton, if you are not seeing much, if you can be involved much, it's actually a success to the community because that's the whole point of community, to be able to kind of evolve and grow and interact with each other without actually needing those kind of nudges and pokes here and there.
Yeah, 100%. You're exactly right. If anything, we do try to stay out of the way as much as possible. But Emily is such a gem that she, I think people invite her to get involved a lot, which is fantastic. So, where did you get to a point where you felt comfortable that you understood, I guess, FASEA to the point where you could actually help others prepare for the examination? Because that's sort of, it's in an environment where obviously a lot of people are unsure, and you're an advisor, and you've sort of put this course. Like, was it a case that you did so much work with the exam prep yourself that you thought, well, I just have to get this into the hands of other advisors? Was it like that?
Yeah, so I think another kind of aspect of, me in terms of my career, I've done different things, in the past, over past 16 years. I started in project management, change management, and risk management, and then I moved in financial services. I did advice. I ran my business for a while. I think that was the time that we shared the most pain with Adrian over the drinks and random chats here and there. And a reminder to him on York Street when we were both, having a little tiny little office. From that, I started early on because of my background. I had my master in finance, and then I got invited back by the lecturer who was running the course that if I can go and start doing guest lecturing. And that's how I got into the education side of the advice.
Wow.
And I realized that it's the area that actually hasn't been kind of tapped much. And you go and do a degree, but you don't actually have a pathway as how to become an advisor. What do I actually need? And I look back at myself when I wanted to become an advisor. I got my master's degree and I said, okay, let's rock and roll and go and give advice. And I said, oh no, wait a second. What do I need? Oh, you have to have a diploma of financial planning. I was like, are you serious? I've got a master's degree. Do I have to have a diploma? Yeah. It doesn't make sense. And now we're going the other way. It's like, oh, you've got a diploma. Now you have to have a master. Oh, okay. But not any master, the masters that we want or we approve or however, yes. So I learned a lot from the students that it's an area that it's very abstract. So when you go to a class, it's very hard to motivate and encourage students to talk and ask questions. So that's kind of how I got more into the education, because I absolutely love to challenge myself. And if I'm in an environment that, that I have to bring everyone together, I absolutely enjoy that. And that was in a great, it was a great opportunity in a very kind of safe environment, at universities, in the classes, that you can actually maybe shape someone's career down the track in the future, if you are actually guiding them through the right way. So that's how I got into the education side. And then I moved to one of the education providers, and I was working purely on the FASEA requirements and exam and developing bridging courses past 18 months. And that's how I realized that there are a few other courses at the moment in the sort of a market, if you call it. But what is lacking is that advisor perspective.
Yeah.
So you have courses that are run by different education providers or individuals. But when you actually have a sit down and when you are bringing your client case to the sort of to the platform and you want to ask questions about them, usually that's where the lack of expertise come into play, that it's more about the academic side and it's more about the theories and not really tangible and practical. And sometimes you get to the point that they tell students or advisors that well, this is how it is, just go with it. Whereas I like to actually be able to tell these students / advisors that well, let's go and have a look and kind of break it into pieces and see why this client case might have been a breach. Let's actually drill down and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, coming at things from an advisor's point of view just makes so much more sense, I think, with anything that's in financial advice. There's always such a strange overlay where advisors understand advice, but if you've never been an advisor, then it's really hard to talk the language, because it's kind of, I mean, if I think back to when I was a tax agent and I was studying to be a financial planner, it was really bizarre because I didn't quite, in fact, I had no idea. I sort of, I was graduated the RG 146 or, whatever it was, the diploma. And I remember starting in financial advice and it being absolutely different to everything that I was expecting. I was expecting it to be much more along the lines of tax, but it ended up being so much more important because you're dealing with, well, the future happiness of people over the course of, a week, a year, a decade, and longer. And I guess it was so important. It was much more important than just getting one or two things right. So like when you're in tax and you're doing tax planning and things like that, it's really numbers driven. It's okay, this, and this. But because it's isolated to essentially a 12-month period, the financial year, that it doesn't have an extremely large impact on someone's life. Whereas financial planning just has such a huge and overwhelming impact on people's life that mandate and the pressure of that role doesn't really sink in until you've been catching up with the same clients for a few years and you're realizing that, well, we are hitting these goals and they're starting to trust me. And now we're both working towards this long-term outcome together. It's a very cool thing, and it's very hard to describe that to someone if they've never done it before. So I'm a huge fan of advisors and former advisors getting as involved in all aspects of financial planning, including FASEA. Funnily enough, I just interviewed Stephen, the CEO of FASEA, again for a second time. I think probably by the time this podcast comes out, that podcast would have already made the rounds. And I can tell when I speak to him was in that he's relaxed a lot, substantially over the last 12 months, because when he was brought in, right, it was, like advisors had just been through the Royal Commission, and it was a very tumultuous time. But I mean, at the end of the day, and you've probably seen this yourself, there's been thousands of advisors sort of publicly declaring the fact that they're now FASEA qualified, right? It's almost become this like pretty positive thing that, okay, is it annoying? Yeah, it's a little bit annoying, but now we're getting it done. And it's not so much that FASEA was annoying, it's just that there was so much change happening in real time that it was a lot of pressure, I think, for a lot of people. And I think when Stephen came in, it was a difficult time, but it's been well received, and it's really good to see. What's your sort of takeout, considering you're teaching or you're preparing advisors for the FASEA exam? What's your general takeout? Where do you sit? How do you view FASEA as a new body and code that it is? Are you seeing the benefits when you talk to advisors about the preparation, and like, what are the conversations that you're having?
It's a very good, interesting question, Clayton. I always tell the advisors that there is nothing new in the FASEA standards and value that, they don't know. They know all of that. They know everything about it. And it's a matter of understanding the FASEA perspective as how to demonstrate those knowledge in a practical sense, which is a client cases and scenarios. So nothing is new. I think maybe that's a little bit of an area that these type of courses that I'm running would be helpful for advisors, because you already got the foundation right. You just need to kind of tweak it here and there, and be able to kind of do a little bit of a time management and understand what area you need to maybe focus a little bit more, depending, what type of advice you provide. If you are a sort of a, front facing and you're dealing with client on a daily basis, or you are more of a writing strategies maybe in the background, or if you are very strong in a technical side but not necessarily on a client engagement side. So depending where is your strength in the advice space, sitting in this type of courses, it helps you to bring everything together. And that's why I'm very passionate about what I'm doing, because I do believe genuinely that all the advisors know everything about it. There is nothing new. It's a matter of polishing your existing knowledge. And yes, you may be able to, during this process, add, a few things here and there and learn from each other. And I think that's the value of having courses in such an expert advisor platform, to be able to share experiences in a community sort of a setup that you can actually bounce back idea from each other. You can actually, check with your peers that I'm thinking of such and such. What are your ideas? And I think that's how we can empower and grow together and have a stronger industry.
Well, you're exactly right, because the sharing and learning between one another, from practitioner, professional to professional, is, I would say, just a modern way to do professional development in general. Like, This whole idea that you need 40 professional development points or whatever that is, and you just read some articles, or you sit in a room where someone talks. Realistically, you're getting dictated to what it is that you're meant to be learning. But if you're in an environment where everyone's on sort of an equal playing field, which is, we don't know everything. And if everyone sort of plays by that same rules, we don't know everything, and that's totally fine to share and learn and to ask questions and to answer questions. To me, it just makes sense. It's just a more efficient and effective way to get better, like for thousands of advisors, like for a whole industry to get better sort of simultaneously. So that's kind of the premise, of XY. We're not really doing anything that unique. We've just kind of digitized the concept of sharing and sort of centralized it. But I'm a big fan of what you're doing. So first and foremost, like, thanks so much, right? Like, that's so cool that you put your hand up and you're running these courses, these exam preps. I think it's amazing. Like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I have to reach out and ask you what you're up to there. So how did you get into advice? I know you mentioned that you had a master's in finance. And before we started recording, you mentioned that you'd moved here from Iran about 11 or so years ago. So did you have your master's in finance before you got here, or like what's the story?
No, I'm a little bit of a nerd. So my bachelor is in mathematics. So,
Whoa!
I have always had a passion about, the data before it became a buzzword. So now I can actually proudly say I had a bachelor in mathematics, whereas before it would have been bachelor in mathematics. I'm a bit of a nerd. Whereas now you don't need to be too embarrassed about it. So I had that sort of excitement and interest about complex sort of information and theories, and how you can break it down into more digestible pieces. And I think that's what I'm doing with the FASEA, that when you look at it, all the standards and values, it may look too hard or too complex to have a look at it. But when you actually break it down into the practical aspect of it, and in a sense that it's more like a scenario basis and client, and you just break it into smaller pieces, you understand that, oh, okay, I know all of that. I am sure that I can, pass the exam. It's not that hard. So I did my bachelor, and I was in a project management. So I was back in Iran. I was working at Nokia's immense network. So I was in a telco and in a technology side of it. The rollout of the telco and the mobile network in Iran. And then I moved to Australia, and it was a little bit of a chicken and egg situation for me for the first 6 months to be able to get a job, because you had to have a local experience to get a job. And then I couldn't get a local experience because I couldn't get a job.
Oh yes, the joy. It's like when you're starting your career and everyone wants 2 years experience.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah. You want to, become an advisor, but then you have to be an advisor to become an advisor.
Yeah.
And it was a very similar situation. So then I managed to, get a job, and I was a project management for a while. And then I was doing my MBA, but I found it a bit too sort of broad in terms of the context. And I wanted to be more specialized in certain areas. So I got more drawn into the finance aspect of it. And also in terms of a little bit about my kind of personal life, my dad retired from banking and finance back in Iran after 35 years. So it was always that sort of a conversation in our kind of household, and my dad was in, fraud and kind of risk management. So he was always talking about different cases, and he sort of, he kind of decoded them and so forth. So I had that kind of like underlying, excitement and passion, and just didn't know about it until it actually kind of flourished, going into a course and then say, oh, okay, that's what it is. And I'm enjoying it. So then I did my master, and as I mentioned, I thought towards the end of my master degree, I did a subject, personal wealth management. And I thought, oh, wow, that is very interesting. I never knew that I can actually tell someone what to do with your money. Like, this is so cool. And I like sharing, as you gathered, like, having the course, and I like talking about things. And it was like a perfect opportunity. You can talk about what you really love with other people, and maybe guide them towards, their life in terms of their finances. So then I thought, this is the perfect, opportunity, and I want to be an advisor. I said, okay, how can I become an advisor? And then I had to do a diploma of financial planning to become an advisor, even though I had a master's degree. So I was so excited that I was like, how can I do this diploma? Like can I do it in 2 days? How long it's going to take? So anyway, I did the diploma of financial planning, and then I joined AMP Horizons program. I got into the advice, and that's how I met my fellow advisor, and the whole sort of fun started.
Yes.
And then from that, I started my practice back in the end of 2014.
Yeah.
And then I was approached by a recruiter to join a super fund. So and because it was aligned with what ultimately I wanted to do, which was doing my PhD in behavioral finance, because I was very interested about what makes people make certain decisions in their finances. And
So a PhD in what did you say?
Behavioral finance.
Wow. Cool.
So watch the space. More courses going to come on the platform, which I'm at the moment just
Are you serious?
the content together.
That's amazing. So did you actually complete your PhD?
I haven't. So a lot of things happened along the way. I fell pregnant with my daughter in 2016. Wow. It was a kind of a little bit of a bittersweet, because I had to leave a job that I really, really liked, because it wasn't necessarily supportive of, being a pregnant woman, to be absolutely honest. Yeah. But without, getting too much into details. So then I went back into the workforce, joined a fintech company, which they were doing an age pension. And sort of automating the process and so forth. So I did that and set up the compliance and so forth. Then I did a bit of a remediation, and that's when I guess I realized what can be a damage of the kind of extent and the depth of a damage if the advice is not really appropriate.
Yes.
Once you start, doing remediation and go through the cases, because usually you get the cases that are not, so well prepared, and then you start seeing the sort of a pattern in, maybe advisors' behavior, that certain things has been happening. And again, that kind of triggered that I'm really keen about understanding the kind of behavior side of things in the finance. So I did few subjects in psychology at Macquarie University.
Wow.
That kind of drawn me again back into the behavioral finance, that I want to understand the human aspect of this financial planning. For me, the kind of driving factor was when I was sitting, in front of a client, I would put a, risk profile question in front of them. And I go through a question and say, "Oh, Hooria, would you trust you? Whatever you say, should we go like aggressive? Should we go, conservative?" I'm like, no. I'm going to explain it to you, what each of them means. And it's your decision. You have to feel comfortable, because guess what? 6 months down track, when everything goes down, you're going to come back here and say, you said so. And I don't want that situation happen.
Yes.
So that's how I got interested that what sort of tools can I maybe develop in terms of risk profiling. So I work on that space for a little bit with some sort of a like a psychometric test, and how these two can kind of collaborate in a way.
Really? Where did that go?
That is still on the kind of back burner. That's how I kind of applied my bachelor in mathematics and the data science part. So having some sort of a predictive modeling and started learning R and Python, the kind of two data science programming. That's when I joined one of the education providers in the financial services, and then I was purely working on the FASEA requirements and FASEA bridging courses. So I set up the behavioral finance course there, and then also working on the FASEA Exam Prep workshop, and that's kind of the whole journey. And I am just, I am also, in like you know what you want to do in your career, but also you leave yourself a little bit kind of fluid and open-minded to see what comes your way, and you kind of shift to like a little nice creek through the rocks.
It's a good way of putting it. Wow. So you mentioned you did a little bit of coding with Python and the like.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. So I definitely have to see this. I would love to see it. I'd love to see this risk profiling tool. If you're coming at it from an educated background with this, with an overlay of being a financial planner, it sounds like an awesome tool. Because one of the weird things with risk profiling is that there's nothing in the regulations that says, well, you need to do a risk profiling by asking 10 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, it's really open. And I've seen a little bit of, I guess you could say, progressive views on how to tackle this concept of risk profile. But what you've mentioned, it sounds really cool. After this podcast, I definitely want to check all that out.
Yeah, sure.
And so, do you feel like you've found your spot? Do you feel like you've found your space now? Because obviously you're really well educated, and then you've got this kind of drive to help other advisors. Are you finding yourself more and more drawn into the education piece, or do you feel like you'll go back to working directly as a financial planner?
I must say that I really dearly miss my time as an advisor. I absolutely enjoyed my interaction with clients and the joy that you get to see in their face once you present the advice, and they can't believe that how much their life has changed and what are the potentials in the future for them. So that's something that I really miss about the advice. In terms of doing advice compared to doing maybe more of education, I like the education aspect of things because I think I can have a bigger impact if I am in the education space within the financial services. I can potentially work with advisors that they're gonna go and work with their clients, and it's a bigger kind of effect.
Yeah.
And that's what it really kind of get me up in the morning, that the excitement, that how much, positive impact you can have in your industry, in an industry that has been kind of hammered right and left and center for a very long time.
Yeah.
As long as I have been in it, it was always something, once was FOFO, then, fee for service. And it's kind of, and I don't think it's, we kind of have come to the point that it's kind of closed off yet. Still, here and there that, things happening, and we still don't have the monitoring body and all of that. So it's kind of like, okay, we got the standards, but who is actually, enforcing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you start thinking about those things, like, oh, okay, I better not think too much about it.
I think that
let's make it someone else's headache.
Oh God. Yeah. The problem is I feel like everyone's taking that approach. No, I'm kidding. There's a lot going on, but you're right. It is taking a long time to get through. So walk us through, what do you think are the top things that financial planners, who are preparing for the FASEA exam should be focused on?
I think the first thing is that make sure that you're actually comfortable and confident with your practice, what you are doing on a daily basis. Because ultimately you are going through the exam and pass the exam to be able to be a confident, even more confident advisor sitting in front of your client. For me, that's the ultimate goal. It's not about, making the FASEA exam is not going to making you a better advisor. You should already be in that space and in that kind of pathway for yourself. Whatever you might need in your, skill set or your toolbox that you think that, oh, maybe I just need to do a little bit more on aged care, for example, or maybe I'm not so confident on SMSF, or I'm not so confident, but it's not an area of interest. So I'm going to be, working with someone who is actually strong. And those kind of collaboration. And if you are not necessarily good in one area, then what's your plan? Are you going to be, taking a course? Are you going to be doing self-study, just going to, read and, or leveraging the communities such as XY advisor platform that you actually can go and ask questions from your peers and kind of like update your knowledge that way, which is a kind of like a fast track way in a way, instead of, sitting down and read pages after pages and still not so sure. At least you can get some sort of a guidance. Other people can't study for you, but you can get some guidance that, what are the things that I need to focus on. And the other thing is, I think FASEA standards and values, this is a very obvious one that, that they definitely advise is going to get tested on it. So make sure that you are comfortable with it. Some of them, I think it's the standard 3 in practice, might be a little bit difficult, or it's still under debate. But my sort of maybe very quick tip is that when you are studying, don't get too caught up in what's right and what's not right with that standard, because that has been set there. But see that how you can actually apply it into your advice, and have you been actually adhering to that standard or not, and how can you maybe change your practice to be able to be as close as possible to that to that standard, rather than trying to kind of prove that that standard is not practical, if it makes sense. Because otherwise you can just get down that rabbit hole, and instead of, passing the exam, you're just going to be sitting, and maybe you might be better off reading like a PhD research paper on how effective is the FASEA standards on the financial services.
Yes, casual weekend reading. Look, thank you so much for jumping onto the podcast. If an advisor's out there and they're saying to themselves, actually, I'm super interested in learning about more, how do they reach out to you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Sure. So the website is Upskill Advisors, and I intentionally picked that name because I do believe that all the advisors are well educated. They have all the knowledge. It might be, a few courses here and there that you can upskill yourself, and why not take that opportunity? So it's upskilladvisors.com. Not .com.au, so just the .com. And also in XY Advisor, you can either reach out to myself directly, or I've been working very closely with Emily. I appreciate her support and her help. And also she's been my brain trust, just every now and then, bouncing ideas and just running a few, suggestions here and there. And she's been great providing feedback as well. And I guess the beauty of this course, maybe compared to other ones, is that I'm here to hear what works and what doesn't work. So This is a course that is constantly updating, evolving, whereas with any other provider, you have to go through a very lengthy, approval process to maybe tweak something here and there. And I'm sure we all have experienced that a table might be for 2018, 19, and they just can't update it because it's just too much of the effort. Yes. Whereas with this course, you provide your feedback, and I'll make sure that I'll, take the right action for you.
Awesome. Hey, look, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and share. Super interesting story. Amazing. Like, the level of education that you've got is huge, right? I mean, my God, I did a bachelor, and I dragged myself over the line. So congratulations to all your success so far, and well done, pulling this sort of niche, I guess, service to advisors together. And thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Clayton. And it was an absolute pleasure, and I really enjoyed this chat. Thank you so much.
Cheers.